Commander Ethan Miller stood tall as the massive doors of the alien ship slid open. This was humanity's first official meeting with the Galactic Confederation, and everything needed to go perfectly. Behind him stood his carefully selected team: Dr. Lisa Winters, the xenobiologist, Security Chief Daniel Rodriguez, and Communications Specialist Olivia Wright. "Welcome, humans," said the tall, blue-skinned alien. "I am High Counselor Zix of the Vraxians, founding members of the Galactic Confederation." Miller stepped forward with a diplomatic smile. "On behalf of Earth, we thank you for this historic meeting." The alien chamber was enormous, with curved walls that shimmered like oil on water. Representatives from 12 different species sat around a crescent-shaped table, watching the humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to what Miller thought might be discussed. "Please sit." Zix gestured to 4 small chairs clearly, added as an afterthought. They were noticeably lower than the other seats around the table. Miller noticed the slight but said nothing. This wasn't the time for pride. "We have studied your civilization for some time," said Zix, his voice smooth and practiced. "Your species has achieved space travel rather quickly, though your technology is quite primitive by Confederation standards." Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably beside Miller. The security chief's hand instinctively moved closer to his sidearm. "We are eager to learn," Miller replied carefully. "Indeed, that is why we offer you this." Zix slid a tablet-like device across the table. "A protection agreement. The Confederation will ensure Earth's safety from any external threats. In return, we ask only for access to some of your natural resources and your commitment to follow Confederation technology regulations." Miller picked up the device. The terms appeared in English, but the language seemed deliberately complicated. As he read further, his diplomatic smile became harder to maintain. This wasn't an agreement between equals. It was barely disguised subjugation. "We value your generous offer," Miller said, choosing his words with care. "However, Earth would prefer to enter into a mutual exchange of knowledge and resources. We have much to offer beyond our raw materials." A ripple of what sounded like laughter moved through the alien representatives. "Commander Miller," Zix said with false patience, "you misunderstand your position. Earth is classified as a development stage civilization. You have no standing to negotiate terms." Dr. Winters leaned forward. "With respect, the classification systems of the Confederation cannot have anticipated Earth's unique development path. We've achieved in centuries what your records suggest took other species millennia," a thin-limbed alien with gray skin snorted. "Exactly why you need guidance. Species that develop too quickly inevitably self-destruct." "We simply wish to help," Zix added with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Miller set down the tablet. "Then, help us as equals, not as subordinates." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Zix's pleasant demeanor vanished. "Very well. Without our protection agreement, Earth will receive the standard designation. You may observe Confederation proceedings but will have no vote. Your ships may use designated travel lanes only, and your technology development will be monitored to prevent unfortunate accidents." "That sounds more like containment than cooperation," Rodriguez said bluntly. "Call it what you wish." Zix rose from his seat. "The meeting is concluded. You will be escorted back to your ship." As they walked out, Olivia Wright whispered, "They never intended to treat us as equals, did they?" Miller shook his head. "No, but they've made a critical error." "What's that?" asked Dr. Winters. Miller's eyes hardened as they approached their ship, the Earth vessel Defiance, living up to its name in the massive alien docking bay. They showed their hand too soon, and they severely underestimated humanity's response to bullies. Behind them, the Vraxians were already discussing how best to extract Earth's resources while keeping humans dependent on Confederation technology. What they didn't know was that human history was filled with smaller powers outsmarting larger ones, and humanity was about to add one more chapter to that history. 5 years had passed since the first meeting with the Galactic Confederation. On the surface, relations between Earth and the alien coalition remained civil, if cold. Beneath that thin veneer, Tensions were growing. Lisa Winters, now head of Earth's Xenoscience Division, stared at the data on her screen with growing anger. The numbers didn't lie. Something was happening at the edges of the solar system. "Captain Rodriguez, can you confirm these readings?" she asked, sending the data to the bridge of the patrol ship Eagle. Daniel Rodriguez, recently promoted to captain. His own vessel studied the information. "Confirmed, Doctor. Those are definitely Confederation mining signatures. They're stripping resources from the Kuiper Belt without authorization." Lisa sighed. This wasn't the first violation. In the 5 years since Commander Miller's diplomatic mission, the Confederation had systematically pushed the boundaries of what they could take from humanity's home system. Back on Earth, Olivia Wright sat in a darkened communications lab, headphones pressed to her ears. As Earth's top signals analyst, she had spent months decoding the Confederation's encrypted transmissions. What she found made her blood run cold. "Admiral Howard, you need to see this," she said, forwarding the decrypted message to Earth's United. Defense Counsel. Admiral Grace Howard, a stern woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, read the message twice to be sure she understood it correctly. "A containment zone?" she muttered. "They plan to quarantine our entire system?" "Yes, ma'am," Olivia replied. "According to their communications, the Vraxians consider us dangerously innovative and a potential destabilizing influence on other developing worlds." The Admiral's jaw tightened. In other words, they're afraid we might give their other vassals ideas about independence. Across the globe, similar reports were coming in. Engineer Simon Carter discovered that supposedly beneficial Confederation technology given to Earth contained hidden limitations, preventing humans from advancing too quickly. The aliens had sabotaged human progress while pretending to help. Kevin Phillips, who had replaced Miller as Earth's diplomatic officer after the commander's retirement, tried one last approach through official channels. He requested a meeting with the Confederation Council to address Earth's concerns. The Vraxian representative, Sub-Counselor Drav, didn't even try to hide his condescension. "Your concerns are noted, human, but ultimately irrelevant. The Confederation has determined that Earth requires stricter oversight for your own protection." "You mean for your convenience?" Phillips replied, struggling to remain diplomatic. "We've documented 27 violations of our territorial sovereignty in the past month alone." Drav smiled thinly. "The concept of sovereignty doesn't apply to development stage species. It would be like allowing a child to determine its own bedtime. The Confederation knows what's best for Earth's long-term interests." Phillips returned to Earth with the final confirmation they needed. The Confederation had never intended to treat humanity as equals. Humans were just another resource to be managed and exploited. That evening, Admiral Howard convened a secret meeting in an underground facility near the old UN headquarters. Commander Miller, though retired, was asked to attend alongside the heads of Earth's military, scientific, and intelligence communities. "Ladies and gentlemen," Howard began, "I believe we've exhausted all diplomatic options. The Confederation views our continued independence as a problem to be solved, not a right to be respected." Miller nodded grimly. "I had hoped I was wrong 5 years ago, but they've shown their true intentions." "What are our options?" asked Simon Carter. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." A small smile crossed Howard's face. "That's what they think, but they've made a critical mistake. While pretending to cooperate, we've been studying them just as carefully as they've studied us." She activated a holographic display showing detailed scans of Confederation ships, weapons, and defenses. The Vraxians believe themselves unassailable because they've dominated the galaxy for so long. They expect compliance, not resistance. And they certainly don't expect what we're about to do. Miller looked at the determined faces around the table. "So we're done playing nice?" Howard's expression hardened. "Humanity tried nice. Now it's time to show the galaxy what happens when humans are backed into a corner." The underground facility hummed with activity as Earth's brightest minds gathered around Admiral Howard. Giant screens displayed Confederation ship designs, weapon systems, and communication protocols. Years of careful observation had given humanity valuable insights into their would-be oppressors. Dr. Bennett, please share your findings, Howard said to a thin man with tired eyes. Dr. Alan Bennett stepped forward. Once known as the world's leading advocate for peaceful space exploration, his views had changed dramatically after seeing the Confederation's true nature. For 5 years, my team has been studying Confederation technology from the few samples we could obtain, Bennett explained. We've discovered something interesting. Their shields operate on a frequency pattern that repeats every 3.7 seconds. Rodriguez leaned forward. A predictable pattern means a predictable weakness. Precisely, Bennett nodded. If we can time our weapons to hit during the microsecond when the shields cycle, we can cause significantly more damage than they would expect from our primitive technology. Next, engineer Samantha Collins took the floor. Her specialty was stealth systems, and her discovery had shocked even her. The Confederation uses a standardized sensor array across all their ships, she explained, pointing to a detailed schematic. It's very advanced, but it has a fundamental gap. Their sensors simply don't detect certain energy signatures that we can easily produce. They can't see what they don't know to look for, Miller commented. Exactly. We can build ships that are effectively invisible to them, Collins said with a slight smile. Admiral Howard allowed this information to sink in before introducing the third key to their plan. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Athena. A holographic face appeared above the center table. Female in appearance with lines of code occasionally rippling across her features, Athena was Earth's first true artificial intelligence. Hello, Athena said. I have analyzed all available data on Confederation tactics and technology. They rely heavily on standardized responses to threats. Their battle doctrine has not changed significantly in over 700 years. Phillips looked skeptical. How can you know that for certain? Because they told us, Olivia Wright answered. Their educational materials brag about the perfection of their military doctrine. They've been so dominant for so long that innovation has stopped. Howard's expression was grim but determined. We're initiating Project Thunderclap, a comprehensive military and technological mobilization unlike anything in human history. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the magnitude of what they were planning. Our public face will remain compliant, Howard continued. Let the Confederation think we're accepting our place. Meanwhile, we build our forces in secret. Dr. Bennett cleared his throat. We should be clear about what we're doing. This will mean war with powers far older than us. They already declared war, Rodriguez said firmly. They just didn't expect us to fight back. Howard nodded. We have 6 months before they implement their containment zone. That's our window to prepare. As the meeting broke into smaller groups discussing specific aspects of the plan, Miller found himself standing next to Howard. You know, he said quietly, throughout human history, empires have fallen not because they faced a stronger enemy, but because they couldn't imagine losing to a lesser power. Howard smiled. The British couldn't imagine losing to colonial farmers. The Russians couldn't imagine losing to Finnish soldiers. And now the Vraxians can't imagine losing to primitive humans. Pride comes before the fall, Miller quoted. And they've been proud for thousands of years, Howard replied. We need to move quickly. Every ship, every weapon, every strategy must be ready. The Confederation controls hundreds of worlds. We have just one. One is enough, Miller said with quiet confidence. Because it's ours. Across Earth, factories were quietly converted. Scientists worked around the clock. Fleet crews trained in new tactics that would confound alien commanders. For the first time in generations, all of humanity united behind a single purpose. The Confederation would soon learn that humans weren't just another species to be subjugated. They were about to become the galaxy's worst nightmare. 6 months passed like a heartbeat. The day the Confederation planned to implement their containment zone around Earth had arrived. Vraxian ships moved into position, their commanders confident in their overwhelming superiority. On the bridge of his ship, the Vraxian commander Krell yawned. This assignment was beneath him, babysitting a backwater planet of upstart primitives. His ship, the Eternal Dominion, was the pride of the Vraxian fleet. Yet here it was on a simple quarantine mission. Sir, we're detecting unusual energy. Readings from Earth's moon, a junior officer reported. Krell waved dismissively. Probably some mining operation. Their technology is hardly worth monitoring. On the dark side of the moon, Lieutenant Nathan Patel gave the final launch order. All stealth vessels deploy now. Remember your training. They can't hit what they can't see. 50 sleek black ships slipped out from hidden lunar bases. Their hulls absorbed sensor waves rather than reflecting them, rendering them nearly invisible to Confederation systems. Inside each vessel, human pilots felt a mixture of fear and determination. They were about to attack an enemy that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. Patel's voice was steady on the comm. Alpha Group target their communication arrays. Beta Group focus on weapon systems. Gamma Group, you're with me, we're taking out their flagship. Aboard the monitoring station nearest Earth, a Vraxian sensor operator frowned at her screen. For a moment she thought she'd seen something. A flicker at the edge of her display. She ran a diagnostic and found nothing. Standard procedure would dictate reporting even minor anomalies, but she didn't want to look foolish in front of her superiors over what was clearly a system glitch. It was the last mistake she would make. The first human ship struck like silent lightning. Precision weapons fire hit exactly when the Confederation shield cycled, causing maximum damage. Before alarms could even sound, 3 monitoring stations went dark. On the Eternal Dominion, chaos erupted as reports flooded in. Krell shouted for clarity as his crew scrambled to understand what was happening. Sir, we've lost contact with monitoring. Stations 3, 7, and 12. Impossible, Krell snarled. Deploy scout ships to investigate. But the scout ships never reported back. As the Confederation forces struggled to mount a response, Specialist Michelle Garcia activated the blackout system from her station on Earth. A carefully calibrated pulse spread across the solar system, disrupting the specific frequencies used by Confederation communications. Suddenly cut off from each other, the alien ships could not coordinate their defense. They had never faced an enemy who understood their technology so well, who had found weaknesses they themselves didn't know existed. Lieutenant Patel's team approached the massive Eternal Dominion. Fire on my mark, he ordered. 3, 2, 1, mark. Advanced human missiles struck the flagship at precisely calculated points. The massive vessel shuddered as explosions rippled across its hull. Inside, Krell was thrown from his command chair as systems failed around him. How is this possible? He roared. They're primitives. Within 3 hours, the entire Confederation containment fleet was in disarray. Nearly a third of their ships had been destroyed or disabled. The rest were retreating to regroup, unable to comprehend how they had been so thoroughly outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as barely worth monitoring. As the Vraxian ships withdrew, Admiral Howard sent a message directly to the Vraxian High Council. It was short, clear, and unmistakable in its intent. This was not our full strength. This was merely a demonstration. Earth is no longer accepting unfavorable terms. We will meet as equals, or not at all. In the Vraxian capital, the High Council watched the recording of the battle with stunned silence. For the first time in living memory, a Confederation fleet had been defeated. Even more shocking, it had been defeated by humans, a species they had classified as barely space-capable. The oldest counselor turned to High Counselor Zix with cold eyes. You assured us they were primitive and easily controlled. Zix had no answer. The galaxy as they knew it had just changed forever. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy with surprising speed. On worlds long held under Confederation control, beings of all species whispered about the impossible. A young race had bloodied the nose of the mighty Vraxians. In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, High Counselor Zix struggled to maintain his composure. Around him sat representatives from the 12 founding species of the Confederation, their faces showing emotions ranging from shock to barely concealed amusement. This human problem must be addressed immediately, Zix declared. I am authorizing the assembly of our main battle fleet. We will show these upstarts the true might of the Confederation. An ancient Drelvan counselor raised a wrinkled hand. Is such force necessary? Perhaps we should consider their request for equal treatment. Zix slammed his fist on the table. Absolutely not. If we show weakness now, every development stage, world will rise up. The entire structure of the Confederation depends on maintaining hierarchy. As the Confederation prepared for war, Earth was not idle. Ambassador Paul Edwards, chosen for his calm demeanor and sharp mind, traveled secretly to meet with representatives from other species. With him, he carried evidence carefully collected over 5 years, proof of Confederation exploitation, broken promises, and outright theft of resources from dozens of worlds. In a hidden meeting room on a neutral trading station, Edwards met with delegates from 3 species who had been under Confederation control for centuries. "We are not asking you to fight," Edwards explained. "We are simply showing you the truth." The reptilian Sorak delegate hissed softly. "The Vraxians have dominated us for generations. Many of us have forgotten what freedom even means." "Humans haven't," Edwards replied. "And we won't let you forget either." Meanwhile, Earth received an unexpected message from the Nithari, ancient rivals of the Vraxians, who had maintained their independence through careful diplomacy and strategic alliances. Admiral Howard met with the Nithari ambassador, a tall figure with iridescent skin and 4 arms. "The Vraxians are assembling their main battle fleet," the ambassador warned. "They have not deployed such forces in over 500 years. Howard nodded calmly. "We expected as much. They can't allow our challenge to go unanswered." "You don't understand," the ambassador insisted. "This fleet has the power to reduce your planet to ash." "Perhaps," Howard acknowledged. "But first they have to defeat our ships, and as they recently discovered, that's not as easy as they thought." The Nithari studied Howard with newfound respect. "My government is prepared to offer technical assistance. Not weapons, that would violate our long-standing neutrality, but information that might help you survive." Back on Earth, scientist Sofia Martinez made a breakthrough that would change the coming battle. Studying data from the first engagement, she discovered that Confederation weapon systems all operated on related frequency patterns. "It's because they've had no real competition for so long," she explained to the Defense Council. "Their technology has become standardized across their fleet. They value uniformity over innovation." Miller, now serving as a strategic advisor, understood immediately. "So if we can disrupt one system, we can potentially disrupt them all," Martinez finished. As the massive Confederation fleet assembled, smaller ships began arriving in the Sol system. Not warships, but civilian vessels carrying representatives from worlds across the galaxy. Some offered covert support. Others simply came to witness what many believed would be humanity's last stand. What they didn't know was that Earth was forming, the alliance of free worlds with other oppressed species, creating the first real challenge to Confederation authority in millennia. On the eve of the Confederation fleet's departure, a junior Vraxian analyst presented a troubling report to Commander Krell, now desperate to redeem himself after his earlier defeat. "Sir, analysis suggests the humans are receiving assistance from multiple sources. They appear to be forming alliances." Krell dismissed the concern. "No species would dare ally with them against us. They stand alone." But as the massive Confederation armada set course for Earth, the Vraxians were about to learn another painful lesson. Humans were never really alone. They had a gift for finding friends in unexpected places. The Confederation fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system like a storm front. Over 300 warships, led by 5 massive dreadnoughts, moved in perfect formation. Their weapons, systems powered up, ready to teach humanity a lesson it would never forget. Commander Krell stood proudly on the bridge of the new flagship, Inevitable Dominion. "Send the message," he ordered. The communication was brief. "Surrender immediately and submit to Confederation authority or face extinction." On Earth, Admiral Howard read the message and exchanged glances with her officers. "Send our reply." The return message contained just 2 words: "Come try." The Confederation fleet surged forward, expecting minimal resistance. Instead, they were met by Colonel Jason Rivera's defense squadrons. The human ships were smaller and fewer in number, but they moved in unpredictable patterns that confounded Confederation targeting systems. "They're not following any standard combat doctrine," a Vraxian officer reported with confusion. "Their movements make no tactical sense," Krell sneered. "It doesn't matter. Our superior numbers will overwhelm them." But Rivera had studied Earth's military history extensively. His ships employed tactics from naval battles spanning human history, zigzagging approaches from World War II, flanking maneuvers from ancient Roman galleys, and feigned retreats from Mongolian cavalry tactics. The Confederation, with its rigid and unchanging battle protocols, struggled to adapt. As the aliens pressed their attack, Dr. Ryan Campbell activated the quantum disruption system that Sophia Martinez had designed. A pulse of energy precisely calibrated to the frequency patterns used by Confederation weapons spread through space. Across the alien fleet, weapons systems began to malfunction. Energy cannons powered down or fired with reduced strength. Targeting. Computers lost accuracy. What should have been an overwhelming barrage became a scattered, ineffective assault. "Impossible!" Krell shouted as reports of system failures flooded in. "Redirect power. Override the disruption." The battle reached Earth's orbit, with both sides taking heavy losses. Though outnumbered, the human forces fought with a desperation and creativity that the Confederation had never encountered. Every human ship captain knew they were fighting for their species' survival. Then, the Vraxian commander made a decision that would change everything. "Deploy the Planet Killer," he ordered. "Target their major population centers." The largest dreadnought opened its central section, revealing a massive energy weapon designed to penetrate planetary shields and devastate surface targets. As it charged, alarms blared throughout the human fleet. Lieutenant Catherine Myers, piloting a badly damaged stealth ship, heard the alert. Her vessel was closest to the dreadnought, but its weapons were offline and hull integrity was failing. "I can still control the engines," she told her crew. "Evacuate through the escape pods now." Over the protests of her crew, Myers stayed aboard. She aimed her crippled ship directly at the charging Planet Killer and pushed the engines beyond. "Safety limits for Earth," she whispered as her ship accelerated toward the dreadnought's exposed weapon core. The resulting explosion ripped through the alien flagship, setting off a chain reaction that tore it apart. The Planet Killer never fired. In that moment of confusion, Admiral Howard gave the order they had been waiting for. "Deploy everything, now." Across the solar system, hidden human bases activated, revealing weapons platforms and ship squads that had been kept in reserve. From the dark side of Mars, from the moons of Jupiter, from concealed asteroid stations, humanity unleashed its full technological potential. The Confederation fleet found itself surrounded. New human weapons, far beyond what the aliens believed possible, tore through their once invincible ships. Weapons based on technology the Vraxians thought humans were decades from developing. Krell watched in horror as his carefully organized formation broke apart under the assault. For the first time, real fear gripped him. How? He demanded of no one in particular. How could they have advanced so quickly? The answer, had he known it, was simple: necessity. When faced with extinction, humans had accomplished in months what might have taken decades in peacetime. They had taken every scrap of knowledge, every captured piece of alien technology, and improved upon it in ways the Confederation could never have imagined. From his command center on Earth, Miller watched the battle unfold. "They thought we would play by their rules," he said quietly. "They never understood that humans don't accept rules imposed by bullies." As the battle around Earth reached its peak, something unexpected happened. Across the galaxy, the carefully maintained order of the Confederation began to crack. On the agricultural world of Taros, the insectoid natives had endured centuries of having their food supplies taken at below fair prices. When news arrived of the human resistance, they seized the Confederation warehouses and expelled the alien overseers. In the mining colonies of the Brel system, workers sabotaged production and declared their independence. 3 other systems followed within hours. The Vraxian High Council received these reports with growing horror. A counselor turned to Zix with fury in his eyes. This is spreading. The humans have sparked a full rebellion. Zix could barely comprehend what was happening. It's impossible. How could one primitive species cause this? Because they showed it could be done, replied the elderly Drelvan counselor, who had previously urged caution. Hope is contagious. Back in Earth orbit, the battle had reached a stalemate. The Confederation still had superior numbers, but their advantage was shrinking as more ships were damaged or destroyed by the surprisingly effective human defenses. Then, Chief Engineer Victor Ramirez gave the order to reveal humanity's most closely guarded secret. In the engineering bay of Earth's orbital defense station, Ramirez stood before a device that looked deceptively simple. Initiate Jump Protocol Alpha, he commanded. Across human space, specially equipped ships activated similar devices. What happened next defied everything the Confederation thought they knew about physics. The human vessels disappeared. Commander Krell was receiving reports of the rebel uprisings when an officer interrupted with panic in his voice. Sir, human, ships are appearing throughout Confederation space. They're everywhere at once. Somehow, impossibly, human fleets were suddenly present at key Confederation strongholds across the galaxy. They had appeared simultaneously at 12 different locations, thousands of light years apart. That's not possible, Krell whispered. Faster than light travel follows fixed paths. They can't just jump anywhere. But they had. In secret, humanity had developed instantaneous interstellar travel, technology the Confederation had deemed theoretically impossible. From her command ship, Admiral Howard broadcast a message to all Confederation forces. Your empire is now surrounded. We offer terms. A new galactic order based on equality and mutual respect. The Vraxian High Council gathered in emergency session. Some argued for surrender while others insisted on fighting to the end. Zix, seeing his power slipping away, made a desperate decision. Activate the Sunforge, he ordered. If we cannot rule the galaxy, we will punish those who defied us. Deep beneath the Vraxian homeworld, an ancient weapon began to power up. Built millennia ago during the First Galactic War, the Sunforge could destabilize stars, causing them to go supernova. It had been used only once in history, destroying an entire civilization. What Zix didn't know was that communications officer Julia Patterson had intercepted the activation codes. A gifted linguist who had mastered the Vraxian language, she recognized the significance of the transmission immediately. They're activating a superweapon, she reported to Admiral Howard. Something called the Sunforge. Information provided by the Nithari confirmed the danger. The Sunforge could destroy multiple star systems, killing billions of beings across the galaxy. Howard made an unprecedented decision. She broadcast everything, the intercepted codes, the Nithari intelligence, and the Vraxian plans, on all frequencies across the galaxy. The Vraxians would rather destroy us all than share power, her message concluded. This is what they've hidden from you for centuries, the ability to destroy entire worlds if they don't get their way. The response was immediate and galaxy-wide. Ships from dozens of species, including many who had served the Confederation loyally for generations, changed course and headed toward the Vraxian homeworld. Former enemies found themselves fighting, side by side with humans to prevent galactic annihilation. The Confederation structure, built on fear and hierarchy, crumbled as its member species turned against the Vraxians who had dominated them for so long. Admiral Howard watched the sensor readings as allies converged from across the galaxy. I never thought our first galactic coalition would form quite like this, she said to Miller. Miller nodded grimly. Nothing unites like a common enemy, and the Vraxians just volunteered for the job. The battle for the Vraxian homeworld was brief, but fierce. Ships from 27 different species, led by the human fleet, converged on the planet's defenses. Their goal was simple: stop the Sunforge before it could activate fully. Inside the ancient weapon control center, High Counselor Zix watched in disbelief as former allies turned against him. Fire the weapon now, he screamed at the technicians. Before they can stop us, But centuries of peace had left the Vraxians unprepared for real war. Their military relied on fear more than actual combat readiness. As alarms blared and systems failed, confusion spread through their ranks. The combined fleet broke through the orbital defenses. Leading the final assault was a small team commanded by Admiral Howard herself. Her ship, flanked by vessels from 6 former Confederation species, headed straight for the massive structure housing the Sunforge. "We need to target the main power conduits," Howard instructed. "All ships, focus fire on these coordinates." Concentrated weapons fire from dozens of ships struck the Sunforge facility. Explosions rippled across its surface as critical systems failed. The ancient weapon powered down, its threat neutralized before it could claim any lives. On the Vraxian surface, military forces loyal to the High Council made their last stand, but their resistance collapsed when citizens, inspired by broadcasts of the Sunforge plot, rose up against their leaders. Within hours, Zix and his inner circle were captured by their own people. 3 days later, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the grand hall that had once hosted the Confederation Council. The room looked different now. The raised platform where Vraxian leaders had sat above everyone else had been removed. All seats were arranged in a circle, symbolizing the equality of all species. Commander Ethan Miller, now gray-haired but still standing tall, addressed the gathering. Many remembered him from that first contact meeting years ago when the Vraxians had dismissed humans as primitive. "We did not seek war," Miller began. "We sought only to be treated as equals. When that was denied, we demonstrated that no species has the right to dominate others, regardless of their technological head start or how long they've been among the stars." The new Galactic Alliance was born that day. Its founding principle was simple. All intelligent species had the right to develop without interference, to trade fairly, and to participate equally in galactic governance. The Vraxians, stripped of their empire but not their homeworld, were invited to join as equal members. Many younger Vraxians embraced this new order, having grown uncomfortable with their species' role as galactic oppressors. As the new era began, humanity's influence spread in unexpected ways. Other species began adopting human ideas. From democratic governance to cultural concepts, Earth music became popular on distant worlds. Human literature was translated into dozens of alien languages. 6 months after the final battle, Admiral Howard and Dr. Bennett stood on a hillside near the old United Defense Council headquarters, watching the sunrise. Above them, ships from a dozen worlds moved through Earth's orbit, their crews visiting the planet that had changed galactic history. "Did you ever imagine it would end like this?" Bennett asked, gesturing at the bustling spaceport in the distance. Howard smiled. "Not exactly like this. I just wanted us to be free to chart our own course." "And instead, we freed half the galaxy," Bennett said with a quiet laugh. "All because the Vraxians couldn't imagine that the primitives might bite back." Howard watched as a group of alien visitors took photos of ordinary human children playing in a park. The visitors seemed fascinated by the simple game of tag. "That's what they never understood," Howard said. "Humanity's strength was never just our technology or our weapons. It was our stubborn refusal to know our place," Bennett finished. As the sun rose higher, ships continued to arrive from across the stars. Not to conquer or control, but to learn, to trade, and to build something new together. The galaxy had been forever changed because one species, dismissed as primitive and unimportant, had refused to play nice when pushed too far, and that was a lesson the galaxy would never forget.